conservative, constitutional. It's the Andrew Cooperrider Show, keeping you informed on what's going on right here in Kentucky.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today, answering a few questions. I appreciate it.
Sure. It's always a privilege to be here with you. I've been a fan watching you and seeing some of the content you have.
You're going to make me blush. Calm it down.
Well, I knew where you came from and where you are now. So you've had a tremendous journey along the way.
Well, thank you. And also, too, I'll just say this at the beginning. You know, this interview came about. We weren't conversation, really. Not really as much an interview. But it came about because as listeners, avid listeners that would have just listened to the last two shows, I did a video forum with the Senate candidates. I tried to do the same thing with the 6th district race, but you were the only campaign willing to get involved. And I think that does say something that, I sometimes have a reputation for being mean. I don't know why, but sometimes I do. And you're willing to come in here. You have no idea what we're about to talk about or what I'm about to ask you. So I think that does show some courage. And I hope those of you listening take note of that.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's always good for the voting public to know who they're voting for and who this particular individual is. And, I have nothing to hide. And so I just want to be able to answer those questions truthfully and faithfully to those who will be watching this. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So let's just start off. You were an estate house rep before. And you, how long were you state house rep?
I'm currently still state representative.
Oh, yeah, currently. Sorry. But how long have you been?
I'm going into my 6th year.
Sixth year?
3 terms.
Did you hold a position before that?
No, sir.
Okay. So 6 years ago,
mm-hmm.
7 years ago probably, you decided to run.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What got you into politics in the first place where you're like, I want to run for office?
Right.
It kind of sucks
Yeah.
running for office. Here you are doing it even bigger. So what propelled you into it?
Well, it's kind of a natural progression for me. Being a pastor in our local community for over 28 years now, it's about serving others, making a difference in people's lives through preaching of the gospel. And as a pastor, you see an underbelly of society a lot of people never see. Walking people through addiction, dealing with death, and being there when mothers are holding their children as they're passing away, and being on call, and just always being there. And so the church has always been a place of healing, a place of people growing their faith, and a place of encouragement. But then there was this war taking place outside of church, this culture war, if you will. And so I felt a mandate to get involved, to pick up the spiritual sword, if you will, and go back and push against this woke darkness, push back against this stuff that was overtaking our children in schools, the things that, from the abortion issues and things of those natures, and saving women's sports and all the things that was coming into our communities. And we saw that even back during COVID, and I was campaigning about that time, and how our governor tried to shut our churches down and tried to really, it was just a different time. And so I felt obligated to get engaged, because the church has been good about healing and restoration, but we've not really been good about pushing back against the darkness. We've been quiet, and I just got tired of being quiet. I wasn't going to be silent anymore.
Before I ask you about why you're running for Congress, something you just said, to be clear, this isn't my viewpoint, just a viewpoint I hear from people, is about separation of church and state. They say, we don't want faith involved with it, or, God shouldn't have a place in our government. You'll hear leftists
I've heard a lot of it
times,
over the years.
But you do hear people saying, especially now you have a bill, I believe you voted yes on, that allows off-campus moral teaching, where a parent can opt into allowing their kid to leave school for an hour,
right,
and once a week, and go to a local church, or if they're Muslim, a mosque even, or whatever moral teaching they want to engage in, and they're able to do that. I've that controversy there as well, saying, well, look, this is religion getting involved with government. What do you say back when you hear those kinds of?
It's absolutely ludicrous from my perspective. When you look at the founding fathers, many of them were ministers. When you study the Black Coat Regiment, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but the Black Coat Regiment, they were made up of men of God, preachers, and they were a big part of the early foundation of our nation. And I think we need to get back to that. And what we've seen with Charlie Kirk over the last several weeks, there has been this spiritual awakening, even among the church and people who have been on the fringes of church. People want to get engaged. And so I feel that was the way I felt 7 years ago, is to be active in society, because we got to push back the culture wars taking place. And who's going to save the kids? Who's going to save our children? Who's going to save the next generations to come? So we need people that'll take up that fight. And I feel like I'm that guy for this particular seat to do that.
So when it comes to Congress, right, one would argue, and by one I mean Andrew Cooperrider,
Sure,
that a state house rep in Kentucky that makes up 1/100th of 1/2 of 1/3 of our state government, where, let's be honest, the federal government, large parts, is really just kind of a piggy bank that, with some strings attached, hands out money to states. A lot of the policy making and decisions about spending even those federal dollars, who it goes to, how that goes on, happens within the state. Would say, look, you make a bigger impact on your community, on the state as a whole, as a state house rep, than you make as a congressman that is 435, right? Okay,
yeah,
just checking to make sure. 435th of 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government, much larger, bigger behemoth. Why would you choose to say, hey, look, I want to run for Congress. I think that's the next step. I think I can make a bigger impact there.
Well, when you look at what I've been able to do over my legislative career and taking up some big fights, as a junior legislator, I went in to our leadership and I had 8 articles of impeachment ready for Andy Barr because of what he'd done to us through COVID. You experienced it as well.
Yeah.
You put up that fight as well. Appreciate you for that. But the way he done our churches, the way he done our church goers.
Sure.
And not only that, the interstate travel. I had 8 articles of impeachment that I worked with a lawyer to get these drawn up. And being a junior legislator, my freshman year, I go in and say, this is what we want to do. And even amongst our own party, you have a lot of pushback saying, you know what, this is not the right time. This is, let's wait this out. But I was ready to take on that fight because I wasn't there to be a politician. I was there to be a difference maker. I got a beautiful life outside of politics. I've got a beautiful family, got 4 grandkids, 2 daughters that are happily married. I've been married to my wife for 35 years. So outside of politics, I have a beautiful life. And I really didn't have to engage because, the things, I'm okay, I'm comfortable. But I didn't see anyone taking up the fights. So even though I went in and tried to get Governor Barr impeached as a junior legislator, the next year I came in and I took on another big fight, which saved women's sports. And during that interim, I worked and crafted that bill, and I had a lot of pushback, a lot of blowback, because during that time, they were able to put the bill releases early. And so what had happened was, during that time, stuff got out publicly. The LGBT community came down on me, the fairness campaign, not just in the state, but around the nation, because I was trying to get something passed here that was really, it just made everybody uncomfortable that was on the other side. So I took a lot of blowback. I took a lot of threats, but it was a fight I was willing to take. And so I pushed hard on that, and I was able to get that across the finish line my second year as a legislator. And it's not about doing things out of convenience. It's doing it out of conviction. And I think the things that I've been able to do in Frankfort, along with the other things I've been able to accomplish, the fight I've taken there, I want to take that to Washington.
So when it comes to what you've accomplished in the legislature, you talked a lot about the fights you've kind of taken on. When you get in there, was there anything to you that was kind of eye-opening, where you say, I thought it was this way, but it's really this way?
Yeah.
Is there anything like that that's occurred?
Most definitely, because the sausage is made behind the scenes. What you see on KET is not really what's going on.
Sure.
The real work is done in our caucus rooms, and where we hash things out, and where we sometimes even get bloody, amongst each other. And but we talk, we work things through, we work on our bills. And so that's kind of where everything, and I wasn't privy to that. I didn't have that understanding until I got engaged. And then, on the parliamentary things and then learning the lingo, when you're a first-time legislator, it took a little bit to get your feet under you. But after 2 or 3 years, you're ready to go. You're to develop relationships, and you're able to get some stuff done. And I think that's what's been very important with my time in the legislature.
So, switching to the federal side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked a little bit about Saving Women Sports, work you did there. You had some fights on the COVID side of things, the
Yes.
lockdown side of things. What do you hope to accomplish? What is your main point? So let's say you get the seat in Congress, right?
Sure.
It's obviously a lot of these are hot topics, the DEI things, those kinds of things. What do you think makes you, every single one of the candidates running are going to say, look, I want to protect women's sports. It's a hot thing to do right now. It wasn't maybe when you were standing up on it, but it polls well, Ryan.
Sure, no doubt.
Everyone's going to be doing it, right? And everybody's the Trumpiest Trumper to have ever trumpeted. And so everybody's there on that. You're not going to find a difference, right? What do you think policy-wise you get in there? What do you think you're going to focus on, you uniquely notice as an issue that maybe other people running in the race just aren't really as tuned into?
Well, aside from the social issues that I try to champion and be a part of, because I also help lead in the House.
So take the social issues for a second.
Okay.
In Congress,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think we need to do on those issues that you think isn't getting done?
I think, and I'm all on board with Trump when it comes to saving women's sports, cutting off funding from states that won't implement these policies. We're going to have to keep putting that type of pressure on these woke states because it's just not right. To allow biological male to play girls' sports. And even though it does poll well, I went against the grain in some ways. And a lot of people and other candidates in my race will talk about supporting it, but I got it done. I put up the fight. I took up the heat from all the, liberal organizations. So I pushed that. And not only that, but stopping gender reassignments on minors. I helped lead the charge on that. I've helped lead the charge in the House about also stopping boys and girls' bathrooms and locker rooms. I helped lead the charge on those things. But aside from the social issues, I do see a unique opportunity because here in Kentucky's the heart of America. Within a day's drive, we can touch 75% of all of America. And Central Kentucky is the heart of Kentucky. With that being said, I believe that we can secure funding, fix our infrastructure, and be really with all the industries, from the bourbon industry, horse industry, and all the industries that we're privy to, we can, in the agriculture we have here, we are on the precipice of great things happen economically. And I believe with my business experience, I'm able to help bring some of that into the 6th District.
So, so that's on some social and collecting the money up as far as it goes. Switching gears a little bit, obviously foreign policy setting, a lot of things going on there, a lot of debates going on as well. Obviously Rand Paul's taken issues with the bombing of Venezuelan drug cartel boats. Venezuelan drug cartel boats, and the missile strikes going on those. You have a mix of issues going on overseas, of course, the foreign war side of things. First, let's start with that. Let's start with the missiling of Venezuelan drug boats.
I'm all for it. I'm all about it, because if we don't send a strong message and send a strong deterrent and saying, hey, you're not bringing that into our country, I would rather take care of it on our waters than to have that stuff come in our country and kill our children. Fentanyl. And I have to say this, since Trump has worked on closing the border, I read a statistic the other day that fentanyl overdoses have dropped over 35%.
That's pretty significant.
It's pretty significant. So his border policies are working. And I think this is just another avenue of cutting off the head of the snake that is trying to get into our country. So I'm all for it.
And so when it comes to, let's take Ukraine, right? Foreign conflicts in general, a big issue a lot of people have had is saying, look, we're sending a lot of money overseas as far as that goes. Some people would argue it's not relatively there, but when it comes to Ukraine, what do you think America's interests are there? Should we be involved in Ukraine? And if you do, what level of support do you think Ukraine is owed?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I don't believe in supporting forever wars. There has to come a point in time where these things have to eventually come to an end or we withdraw. But here's my take, is that seeing what Putin has done and what he's trying to do still, I would rather face that on Ukraine soil than face it on America's soil or allow that to spread past Ukraine. So do we send money there? Maybe for a time and a period. Do we send our troops? I would never want to send our troops. I never want to send our soldiers on foreign fields to fight for other people's causes. Now, with that being said, the investments that we make, such as in Ukraine, we should be able to recoup those investments through rare earth minerals, through oil and gas, through some other means to where we're able to extrapolate our investment because we stood with them and we were able to help stand in the midst of that fight, then we should be rewarded with that. So we should be able to recoup some of that investment. And that's my take, is that I don't want to keep these forever wars going on. There comes a point in time where they have to stop. But until...
Do you think we're at that point yet with Ukraine war?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think, there has to be some strong negotiation. And one thing President Trump has proven is that he is a strong negotiator. And what he'd done in the Middle East, that was amazing. So I believe given time and given the right amount of pressure, and I love the strength that he possesses and shows, and he leads from that position. And so I think given some time, he'll be able to bring some things to pass when it comes to bringing maybe a deal or maybe a ceasefire, some sort of situation. So it's just going to be given some more time, in my opinion.
And so obviously then that leads into another place of contention would be Israel.
Sure.
Same question. I mean, what do you think the level of support we should give? What's our interest there? Yeah. Obviously, I believe you subscribe to America First thought process. So whenever I look at foreign policy, I do too. I'm asking the same question of what is our interest?
Right.
In that area. How does this support the America First agenda? And so when it comes to Israel, same kind of thing.
Sure.
What is America's interest there? What level of support do you think America should give them? They're owed, or how do you think about that?
Well, first of all, being a pastor for 28 years, being in ministry for over 30, I have spent my life's work supporting Israel from the pulpit. And I've got friends in Israel. I've been to Israel. I've been to the tomb of Christ. I've been to Golgotha. I've been to Tel Aviv. I love the country. And it's important that America has strong ties with Israel. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. And so those ties are very important to us. And so with that being said, I think going to that level that we have to support them to maintain some sort of peace in the Middle East and to be a voice and to have those allies in the Middle East with all those Hamas, and you got all these terrorist groups around us over in the Middle East, that they really are able to hold off a lot of things that could come over here and affect us in America. So I think that strategically is important to America.
So switching a little bit off let's stay with foreign policy real quick. Mm-hmm. One question for you.
Sure.
If China invades Taiwan, what do you think we should do?
That is another hairy situation, and I wouldn't want to be involved in. I really wouldn't want to put our soldiers and our military at risk. But we would have to be involved to some extent because Taiwan is a friend to America. I mean,
sure.
And so we cannot allow China to do those sort of things that would hamper our relationships and destroy it.
I always look at that and I ask this question: who had the idea to have our processor manufacturing that drives so much of our military technology that close to China in an area that's in contention with China right now? Like, China still holds that's China.
Right. And I'm totally in agreement with that. Though we should be doing that here in America.
Why did we decide to have it on an island?
I don't know where we veered off course when it comes to that. I really don't. And to your point, I thought the very same thing many times. Why are we so dependent on this country?
Yeah, could we could afford to not care more if that wasn't the case? Who had the idea of doing it? I'd love to know who got paid off there.
But with all foreign policy, Andrew, things that affect America directly, we have to be involved in.
Sure.
When it comes to supply chains and our ways of life that we're accustomed to. So, our national interest is really what's at stake here.
Yeah. So, as of we are recording this,
Yes.
and full disclosure to everybody at home, we're recording this probably a few weeks before I'm going out of town. I wanted to do this and releasing some episodes. So, and I preface that because this may not seem pertinent at the time of this coming out, but right now we're in the middle of a government shutdown.
Right.
What do you think's going on there? I mean, a lot of people look at Congress and say, look, this is a broke thing. It isn't working. It's got low approval ratings. Obviously, we have a shutdown right now that, people are starting to get a little concerned about.
Right.
How do you think we solve this problem?
Well, the good thing is, Speaker...
The problem of Congress.
Right.
Do we just get rid of it? No, I'm just kidding.
I hear you. But the thing is, Speaker Mike Johnson and Trump have done a tremendous job, and he got that passed out of the House with a clean CR. And Chuck Schumer's holding it up, and the Democrats are holding it up in the Senate. We all know the story. But it just looks like it's a political ploy, and it's a grandstanding is what it is, trying to get $1.5 trillion to fund illegal Medicaid, the foreigners, the illegals in our country, funding their Medicaid, funding these subsidy programs that helps them stay in office. So a lot of this waste and bloat they're trying to cut out, and they've done a great job. But this clean CR really just gives them a little more time to come back for the budget reconciliation. So, I just think that it's been passed clean over the last 3 times they've passed it. They were just asking for another month. So I think there's no reason for this shutdown, in my opinion.
So looking at our current Republican congressman, because I'm sure Morgan McGarvey you can talk all day about, but looking at our current Republican congressman, you have Comer, you've got Hal Rogers, you've got Brett Guthrie, you have Massey and Barr. What do you think? Do any of them stand out to you as somebody who does things really well, somebody who does things badly, somebody you think you would do differently? Just how do you feel about our current crop of congressmen? As you're coming into that, obviously you don't want to speak bad about people who could be your future colleagues, but people like to get a sense of what kind of congressman somebody would be.
Well, the good thing about Andy Barr is that he has got a huge swell of support because the way he's treated veterans and his veteran constituency. And he has a great program that really has embodied and helped. I've known several veterans that were able to get help through his constituent services. But not only that, but his ability to communicate and to do those things well when it comes to getting things done for the constituents in the district. Not just veterans, but other matters as well. So those things play well for Andy Barr. And I have a personal relationship with him. But I don't know Brett Guthrie as well. And I don't know Thomas Massey as well. So it's hard to speak when you don't have that personal connection. All you get fed is what you see on social media, what you get fed on the news. So those things I kind of tippy-toe around. I know these are principled men, but, whether I agree or disagree with a certain policy issue, that doesn't take away from who they are as a person.
I said this a few weeks ago on my show where I said, it's not as much whether I can agree or disagree on an issue. I care more about, do you have some sort of political philosophy that in general I agree with, and then when you make a decision, can you justify that through that philosophy? Anytime like for an example, somebody sits there and they say this was a common thing, and rewinding back to COVID, and I know you voted yes on this bill banning vaccine mandates. And it was banning it for government employers. Right. And there was talk of banning it for private employers too. And I know there's some back and forth and stuff, but not to go too much in the road. And I can sit there and say, look, I'm a more liberty person. The government, people would say, well, you don't want the government coming in and telling them not to give the vaccine. And my response to that was, the problem is that the government has already taken and used our tax dollars to create a culture of vaccine mandates in the workplace. And now the government has to undo that.
Right.
And undoing that may involve telling some private businesses, hey, look, you can't do this anymore. I know we incentivized you with money and everything else, and we created this idea you need to do it, but we have to fight back now against, the federal government handing down tax incentives and everything else by saying no. So it's really more, to me, a war of government telling private business to do something with incentives and government telling private business not to do anything at the state level to fight back against the federal government. And I think that's a pretty good explanation that falls in line with, well, you're a liberty person, why would you agree with this? One thing I heard from people who are not liberty-minded, they would say, well, we don't want to tell private business what to do. And anybody who said that, I immediately disrespected, because I'm like, you literally pass regulations telling private businesses what to do every single day.
Every day.
What are you talking about right now? And so that's just an example of like, if you can explain it following a cohesive philosophy, even if I disagree with the outcome, I can be okay with it. But if you can't, that's when I'm like, oh, you're just paid off or something. Like somebody's just paying you to say this. Speaking of money, national debt. That's a big thing for people.
Sure.
It's high.
It's too high.
It's high. Hundreds of millions spent a month paying just on the payments, right? How would you come in there as far as budgeting goes? Certain congressmen say, look, I will never vote for a budget increase. Certain congressmen, I know Rand and Massey, have said, we just want a 1% reduction, those kinds of things. When you look at government spending, one, how serious do you view the national debt? And in line with that, what would you do as a congressman to get that down? If you do view it as serious, if you don't, well, that question doesn't matter. So what would you do to get it down? Is there any specific cuts you'd make?
I never would be in support of raising the debt ceiling under any circumstances. As a matter of fact, what DOGE has done early on has really proved to be beneficial. There's still a lot of waste and bloat within the government, and I think we got to attack those things. There's departments that we just need to obliterate and get rid of. We need to really make our government much smaller than what it is.
What departments do you think we need to get rid of?
Well, Department of Education for one.
And, cool. And
a lot of these things can go to the state. A lot of these things. And things like the EPA, some of they have killed us in Kentucky when it comes to the coal industry. I mean, we would be one of the most independent energy states if we were allowed to operate and not have our coal-fired plants decommissioned, having the overburden regulations that we've had through Obama's EPA days. So it's just we're fighting an uphill battle. We need to deregulate business. We need to make business easier to do, not only in the state, but in the nation. So I just really think there's things that we can attack to really make government more slender, more effective, and really serve the people rather than the people serving the government.
So you just said you wouldn't ever vote for a debt ceiling increase. And, we've seen a lot of debt ceiling increases over the time. It's really not a common thing. Most congressmen have always voted yes on a debt ceiling increase. I only think of Massey voted yes one time because it came with a 1% guarantee cut. If they pass another CR, it'd be automatically cut by 1%. I haven't seen a lot of other ones do that. So it is a bold statement to me.
But here's the thing. I would have passed the big, beautiful bill, and I tell you why. Is because it would be jet fuel to our economy. And the return that we get from that, the investment that it sets forth for the years and decades to come is going to be astronomical to really come back and fill our coffers and to really be able to pay down some debt. So with that being said, I would have passed that big, beautiful bill. Not a problem. But going from there, looking strategically at our budget, looking at the government waste that we have, working lock and step with the Trump's administration and DOGE, I think there's so much more that can be done. Now, I don't have all the answers.
I don't. I'm
not going to sit here and pretend I know exactly, but I do know the methodology that needs to take place into making those things happen.
Yeah, the one big beautiful bill. That's an interesting. If I was a congressman, I honestly don't know how I would have voted, because one flaw I saw with it was a lot of their planning and everything else for it is and this was Stephen Voss, I believe. He's the budget guy or
Yeah.
something for Trump's house. You probably know. I'm more of a state politics
Right.
guy, so I do the best I can. But I was hearing him on interviews about the One Big Beautiful Bill, and he mentioned that, this is a plan, like you said, accelerating the economy, and he kept talking about a 10-year plan. And every time I heard that, I thought to myself, we don't really have 10 years. Because you got to think, we maybe have 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Congress gets lost to the Democrats, in this upcoming time frame, in which case, you can't get anything passed, and then there's no guarantee a Republican wins in 4 years and undoes it. So that was just a concern. But at the same time, you have the Trump tax cuts in there and those other things that you mentioned, fuel the economy, keep it going. Not passing those Trump tax cuts probably would have greatly held it back. Sure. So, it's an interesting bill. As I say that, about that particular piece of legislation, I do wonder when it comes to the national debt, if there is enough will up there to even cut just 1% even.
And I thought about that very same thing. And going there and developing relationships is going to be key to my success as a congressman, and being able to work well with others, being able to establish yourself as a voice. Because here's the thing, you go back to the fact, I don't want to go up there and be a button pusher. I don't want to go up there and just be somebody who votes yay and nay. I want to be somebody who's engaged, someone that pushes back against this woke ideology. And it's imperative that the 6th Congressional District does that. It's one thing to say, I'm a strong, staunch conservative, when you got a big personality like Donald Trump to stand behind. He's the leader of the free world,
Right.
So it's easy to say, I'm the biggest Trump guy in this race. But can you be a strong conservative when you got a Democrat president? Can you be a strong conservative when you are in the minority in the House? I can do that. And I can't, you go back to the COVID thing. I was the only candidate in this race that pushed back against the vaccine, pushed back against the mask mandates, when another individual in this race from his chair position pushed the vaccines, pushed the mask mandates, and pushed for, the things you were talking about a little earlier about, employers being able to fire. I as a pastor during the COVID shutdowns, I was writing religious exemptions for everybody and everybody, because I was fighting this thing tooth and nail, because it wasn't right. People's body autonomy, trying to push a jab into somebody who we don't even know what the ramifications. Now we're starting to see death tolls rise. We're starting to see so many more sicknesses. I had a neighbor that died of ALS just a few weeks ago, who contracted it about a month after he took the COVID shot. So we're just now, we don't even know the totality of the damage that has done. And for people standing up for themselves and then having politicians saying, you should do this, and pushing it on people, it really makes me upset.
So in that same vein, talking about being a strong conservative, one of the claim, and this isn't just a claim coming recently even, one of the things I've heard for years, because there's been a knock on Andy Barr for not being as conservative. And one of the responses I've heard from people is that this isn't even with just him running for Senate. This was years ago. I've heard this for the first time, is that, a lukewarm kind of Republican is the only kind that can win the 6th district. And you hear that conversation now of, if anything, there's not, the biggest attack I hear on you is not as much about your conservative bona fides. If anything, it's that you're too conservative and you wouldn't be able to hold the district for the Republicans.
And see, a lot of that is fear-mongering, Andrew. It's coming from other camps of people that are running in this race. And the reason being, when you look at the schematics, when you go back to November 2024, Andy Barr won this seat by 25 points. Donald Trump won by 15 plus. So when you look at this district makeup, and when we redistrict the 6th
I don't think anybody would say Donald Trump is a lukewarm conservative candidate. Right. He's pretty polarizing.
Yeah, he is. But we cut out a lot during the redistricting. We cut out Franklin County in this district, which was a huge Achilles heel to Andy Barr's district. We cut that out during the redistricting.
Yeah, I gave it to the old Comer hook.
Yeah. So from that point on, Andy Barr, he's won this race overwhelmingly. So with that being said, we're still a +9 district, +10, somewhere in that range. Whoever wins this primary is going to win. And so we have enough conservatives all around. And here's another thing, to my point. When I was redistricted into Fayette County, because I have all of Clark as a state rep, and I had a portion of Madison, where they redistricted me into Fayette out of Madison, I was told just concentrate on winning Clark County. Just make Clark County. You've got an overwhelming support there. Just give up on trying to win Fayette County. Well, I've done the very opposite. I went over there, put all my energy and effort into Fayette County, and I won Fayette County with 58% of the vote out of my district. So the work I'm willing to put in to engage, I'll have what other candidates and other campaigns won't have. I'll have 100 people, boots on the ground, campaigning, door knocking, grassroots. We'll be out there touching people. And so this is how passionate we are about winning this race. And we'll make a difference. We get through this primary, we'll win the general. And people, even you go back to the Say Women's Sports issue, moderate Democrats are in full agreement with that. And the potential people who are running on the Democratic side, I want to run against them. I want to run against these guys because I know who they are and I know what they've done and what they're capable of. So I welcome that battle. So, don't let the fear mongering. I know what people say, especially the is he too conservative to win? No, I'm just the right guy for this race.
In that same vein of being too conservative, one thing that a lot of chatter that I've heard about, and as you're a pastor and kind of a, obviously biblical valued person, I've heard a lot of chatter about the abortion issue. I think a lot of people look at Beshear's governor election and say, well, the Republicans, abortion's an Achilles heel for them. They're too pro-life. We need to ease up on abortion in order to continue to win, or we're going to lose. I know you've probably heard that a little bit around the legislature too as well. I mean, a few Republicans last session sponsored bills on abortion. What's your feelings on that?
I'm protecting life, period. God is the giver of life, and I'm going to protect it with all that's within me. So, therein lies, even among our own party, there's discrepancies, but I'm going to protect life because at the end of the day, if I got to stand before God. That's the main thing. When I leave this world, I'm either going to hear him say, well done, thy good and faithful servant, or depart from me. And I want to hear him say, well done. And these babies need to be protected. We need to be a voice for them. So I'm not going to be soft when it comes to those things.
Okay. I mean, it's just something I've heard. I've people say, because in the same chatter of like, this is a loose district. He's too pro-life. He's got to ease up.
Because my life is my life outside of politics, and my journey, my faith journey is way more important to me, and being true to who I am. And that's why I got elected to begin with. I've always been honest and open and transparent with people. When they voted for me, they knew what they were getting. And I have done exactly what I've campaigned on. And so I've not veered off of that. And I can look back honestly over my time in the legislature, in the General Assembly, and there's not one vote that I just sit and grieve about. There's not one vote that I say, I wish I'd go, because I've prayerfully thought and considered each and every vote. Now, would it be the vote that anyone else took? I don't know. But for me, I can honestly say I weighed it out. And so that's important to me.
So as we wrap this up, I think we've been going a fair while, 30, 40 minutes or so. As we wrap this up, just kind of, you look at the candidates in it, 2, 3 others now. There's like some other pharma guy who never heard of him. I just read that he was a pharma exec, and I was like, ooh. But anyways, I'm interested to learn more, but I'm, immediately you're a little suspicious at times, not always the best coming out of that world. Some do, though. Vivek, he came out of there, so, who knows. But anyways, why do you think you're the best? I mean, they're all going to be the most conservative. Deanna Fraser-Gordon is going to say, hi, I'm Deanna first. Make sure people know who she is. And then she's going to, and I'm not saying that as a knock. You're not going to say it. I'm just saying it because when she did declare, many people were like, who is that? You know, she has been quiet. She will admit she's been quiet in the legislature, right? So she does have to fight on that side of things. But anyways, and you have Alvarado, of course, and stuff. So why are you the best out of all of them?
Well, you know, it's just like the stock market. If you want to know what a stock will do, look what it's already done. And when you look at the body of work,
Or look at which congressman bought them.
exactly.
Then you'll know what a stock will do.
Exactly.
Real quick, before we continue on, what do you feel about congressman stock trading now that came into my mind just now?
Well, I think it probably should stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, it's just too of an involved interest there. And so I think it probably should
I was watching
stop.
a video the other day. I know we're getting off track real quick from wrapping up, but I was watching a video, like I think yesterday, and it was going over like this congressman bought this stock. We noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
This congressman that bought that stock, it's a little known stock for a little known company. It was something, here was one. They bought a digital water flow meter company, or bought stock in it. And they sit on the environmental protection committee.
Sure.
And then like 6 months later, the federal government, or a month later, the federal government comes out incentivizing buying these meters, and the stock shoots up 50%, you know? And so there's they're going through like these little known companies that suddenly this congressman that sits on this committee bought stock in, and then like a month or two later, it goes up 50%.
Right.
And the stock had something to do with the committee they sit on.
Right.
And, it just seems.
Yeah, it's too racy.
I
really.
mean, and you've got stories, and I couldn't even tell you this. I just heard the story actually from Mark Cuban, who argues against insider trading laws, says that they shouldn't exist, partially because it's like, you know, take China for an example. They trade on our market. There's no way we can enforce our insider trading laws on China.
That's true.
There's no way to do it. They're not subject to it. People can buy stock all around the world. The only people subjected to insider trading laws are Americans, technically. And so he's talking about how that was unfair. And he's telling a story about this guy who worked at a company, and he would eat his lunch on a bench across from the offices. And he noticed one day there was a bunch of fancy cars pulling up, people in suits coming out and everything else. And he's like, I think we're about to be bought. So he went and bought a bunch of stock in the company. It sold. He made a bunch of money. And they said, no, that was insider trading. Now, he didn't have any knowledge. Right. Anybody who sat outside that building could have gathered that information, but they claimed that was insider trading. But yet you have these Congress people getting astronomical returns.
Right.
And it's an issue. It's an issue. But anyways, back to why you're the best choice. You take a stock, you look what they did to predict what they're going to do.
Yeah. And so with the groundwork I've already laid and the fights I've already taken, and when you compare apples to apples, you'll see that I'm the one that'll be vocal. I'm the one that'll push back. I'm the one that'll take up the big challenges. And so I feel that's what makes me stand out. I'm truly the grassroots candidate in this race. I'm the one a lot of people want to start from the top down. I'm from the bottom up. And so, you know, and I live my life by this motto: a good shepherd smells like the sheep. When you live among the people, dwell among the people, you eat with the people, you run with the people, you just build a life among the people. They trust you because you smell like the sheep. And if you're going to lead people, they got to know they can touch you, you smell like them, and you're able to lead from that position. And so as a state rep, I've done that. I'm from Kentucky. I was born and raised in Eastern Kentucky. Only time I've ever left Kentucky was to serve my country in the military. I was in the Army. And then after that period of time, I came back and lived here, planted my roots here with my kids. And so I'm a Kentucky boy through and through. I'm not going to up and leave, you know, when things appear to look better down the road. I've been here. I've been in the fight. I'll stay in the fight. I love Kentucky. I'm going to live here and hopefully die here. So that is who I am as a person. And I think that wherewithal gives me the advantage of being the candidate that needs to come out of this primary to run in the general election in the fall.
Where do you think, before I go to your final thoughts, looking at the candidates in the race, where do you think your lane is? You think your lane is the strong grassroots conservative, and that separates you from them? Because you see, I mean, you kind of have some candidates that are, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you know, when you talk about a candidate's viability, their ability to win, you're looking at a few things. One is, do they have an electorate lane that is uniquely theirs? Do you think that's uniquely yours, is just the kind of the more conservative traditional type individuals? Or?
Sure, I think that is truly who I appeal to. But not only that, but what gives me a lot more name ID than what people even know is that for 14, 15 years, I was on television. I had a television ministry, and we had a weekly program, and then we had other programs that we were connected to that we were all over television for many years through my ministry. So I have a lot of name ID, especially going out of Fayette County towards the east.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Bath, Bourbon, Madison, Clark, Montgomery, Powell, Estill County, all these counties carried our program. And I ministered in a lot of these churches, the networking of the churches that I have, among other pastors, and the fellowships that I've developed through that. So there was a lot of integral things that a lot of people don't even think about that I have been able to be a part of and be, those things lend well into my race now because it gives me great name ID, and people know. They've watched my legislative career. They followed me, and they know. It's like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you took up that fight. Or when I stood up and stood against the Democrats when they're trying to push abortion, I stand up and I'm very vocal. And so those things, people appreciate it. They want a warrior. They want somebody who's going to fight. And again, I'm not down there just trying to pass policies that benefit me personally. I'm trying to do what's right for the next generations to come. And I think people see the difference.
Any final thoughts? Well, first, what's your website? Where can people find out more about you? Maybe give you some of that sweet cheddar?
Oh, we need the cheddar. They can go to Dotson4ky.com. And
Dotson, Dotson 4FORKY.com.
And there, people can go on there and interact with us. We have email. We have a giving link. They can see our legislative work that we've done and what our agenda is and what our plan is going forward. So I definitely would invite everyone to take a check and check us out on that. And there's a lot of people that have came on board that want to be an intern. That is something that we're working to do now. We done an event at UK campus 3 weeks ago now. And from that event, we garnered a lot of interns. We've garnered people who want to get involved in our campaign. And every speaking event and every forum we do, it really separates us from the pack. And it brings people to our side wanting to get engaged with somebody who's got some passion.
Well, you're the only one willing to talk to me right now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that says something. That says something right there. Well, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you, Andrew. I appreciate your conservative voice, and I appreciate you taking up a fight. And when you kind of cut of the same cloth. Now, we may take different avenues and paths, but you don't care to take up the sword. But I appreciate the opportunity to come here and just share a few of my thoughts and my heart with your audience. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you guys have a great rest of your day.